Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we got a terrific show. We have not one, but we have two guests. We have two guests on tonight, and we're going to be talking Hockey Bones tonight, a game that I've come to grow and love, and a game that you've been playing a little bit of as well.
Yeah, enjoyable.
And so we have some special guests on to talk some Hockey Bones tonight. We are actually live on YouTube right now. And we are also recording this as a podcast to be released later. Before we get going here, ways to get a hold of us, digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the dice line. Send us a text. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. So basically Digital to Dice everywhere. Now, Ron, you had an announcement you wanted to make before we get going here.
I have some very sad news to pass along. Greg Sovon, the creator of Fall Classic Baseball, Play Ball Baseball, Roster Card Baseball, Field Day Baseball, Valhalla, and I'm sure some other games, passed away after a lengthy illness on Wednesday, the 22nd of March. Greg was a big part of the Delphi community, his baseball. He was always striving to make the perfect baseball game. And his creations were tremendous, going back from his early ones, Valhalla, which had an Excel helper. I love that game, and there was every season free up to 2010. He hooked up with George Gurney over at ASG Games to distribute Play Ball. I believe Play Ball. No, it was Fall Classic, which you could buy as a download or as a printed set. And Field Day was his newest game, along with Play Ball. And he really just wanted to make the best baseball game ever. And he always had a very interesting way of putting those games together. And so he gave a tremendous amount of enjoyment to the community. So we wanted to pass along our condolences to his family and all of you who played the games. I know that there has been some discussion about what's going to happen in the future with his games, and when we get more concrete information Greg passed away a week before his 69th birthday.
Oh. And I know you play Roster Card, and you really like
Roster Card. Is an incredible game, Fall Classic. If you've not played it, it's that interesting twist as you roll to see what grade the pitcher is before a start. And so
nice.
A pitcher could be really on top of his game, whereas pitcher could be just having a really bad day. And so Greg's creations will live on because as they do, but a big loss for the community as we going into the weekend.
That's too bad. But anyway, so moving on to our guest. I'm not even sure what episode this is. Is this 177 or 178?
I think it's 177.
177. So it's that would be the Ray Bork and the Gilles Gilbert episode combined, if we want to do it that way, right? Because there's really no
24 Stanley Cup says what?
I don't know any good Canadians that wear 1 or 77, so we'll just stick with that there. But anyway, we do have some Canadian fans here in the chat room. I'm actually outnumbered tonight.
Yes,
but anyway,
you are.
Let's introduce our first guest. Our first guest is Dave Arlington. You've probably seen him on the Delphi forums, and he is actually the creator of the Magic. He's the card creator for Hockey Bones, and he does the rules as well. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dave, glad to be on here and talking about Hockey Bones tonight. Excited about it. And I just want to say that's sorry to hear that about Greg. He was a brilliant guy. And, man, he could just pump out like one great baseball game after another. It was amazing.
They were all good. There wasn't the clunker in the bunch. And I talked with him a couple times. And it's like, no, you got it. Like, no, I don't. And so, okay.
So, Dave, thanks for coming on. So we're going to be talking a lot with him. And also, this is a man you've probably seen on YouTube. Actually, you haven't seen on YouTube, but now you're going to see him now. You've seen his videos. He does a lot of hockey videos. And he is the reason why this show's happening, the reason why I play Hockey Bones. He wouldn't let me walk away from Hockey Bones. In every video he did, I would come in and say, this game's too hard. I don't like this game. This game's too hard. And what happens? He's like, that's okay, Dave. You'll come around. And I come around, and he stuck with me. It was kind of like a therapist, like not giving up on me is what it was. But anyway, welcome to the show, Hockey Unreal. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. And I can't pretend to have known Greg as well, but certainly as well, condolences to friends, family, and fans of Greg Savant. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So anyway, so we're going to get going here. Oh, before we get going, I have a special audio clip to play. I was going to have this as the intro. I was on YouTube and I found this and I took a quick clip. I don't know, hopefully you guys can hear this. Here we go.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. You guys are going to love this. All right, here we go.
Quinn doesn't see it, or does. Baez. Gardner kicks it out. Esposito rebound. Save Gardner. Walton to Esposito. Save Gardner.
That was on YouTube because I got all the hockey clips come up. And it was a game against Vancouver in 72. And I just started watching the highlights. It was just save Gardner, save Gardner. It was George Gardner was in that for Vancouver. So I said, I think that'd be a funny thing to play here tonight on the channel. Anyway, so, all right.
Speaking of sound clips, I just want to say thank you, Dave, for some of your hockey replay videos so that I could show my wife that I'm not the only guy who sits in an empty room and goes, he shoots, he scores.
You know, we did a whole show on, what was it called? You're Not Alone or We're Not Alone?
Yeah, something like that.
Because we all play in our houses by ourselves for the most part. And, you know, it's not like I can get on and, you know, get down to the rink and talk to my buddies. You wouldn't believe what happened today in my game. You know, it's like they're going to be like, look at me, what? You know, so we are kind of by ourselves, but there are so many other people that play this. And that's what's fun about, you know, this podcast and the Delphi forums and Facebook and different. We get to share our experiences because we are a bunch of lone wolves in our bedrooms, you know, so to speak,
even
or our
my
basements.
Cat rolls her eyes. Okay?
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like telling somebody about a dream that you had. You're like, okay. So you rolled dice and you played a hockey game. Oh, good. So anyway, before we get to a couple things here, let's bring in the chat room here. So Dominic DeCellis, hey all, thanks for coming by. My buddy Bill Thornton.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for coming by. We all know Ed Meek, of course. Ed Meek, thanks for coming by.
And I go way back.
Scott Long, thanks for coming by. Scott is, when I do baseball games, Scott is my strikeout tallier. And he'll put K's into the chat room when he keeps track of it. And he guesses, too. I think he guessed 5 strikeouts for Smokey Joe Wood, and he got his 5 strikeouts. So good for Scott. And, oh, no. We have Love for the Sabres jersey by Bill Thornton. I'm not sure. We might have to kick Bill out of the chat room.
I got this one super cheap because it's an Eichel 15 jersey.
Oh, wow.
After he switched from 15 to 9, and then, all of a sudden all the Sabre shops had all these, like, discounted.
Oh, yeah. What, did he play, like 5 games? And then he got traded?
I don't care. Cheap official jersey, I'm in.
Bonnie's coming by here. Robert as well. And Ed, his condolences for Greg Savant as well. Thanks, Ed. Philip Reynolds coming by. Sports Time Machine in the house. David C. David C. showing some love for the Sabres jersey. I don't know. So, yeah, there's more Sabre fans here than Canadian fans.
You won the division today, but you're outnumbered in your own chat.
Ron McGrath stopping by, and Mike Martin. I was actually chatting with Mike Martin today on Facebook. We were talking about the assist charts and things like that. So, it's just been fun to talk to people about the hockey bones. Okay, before we get going, there is one question that we ask all of our guests, and if you've heard the podcast, you probably know what this question is. Dave, we're going to start with you. If you could go back in time and attend any sporting event, what would that event be?
That would be the 6th game of the 74-75 playoffs with the fog and Jim Lorentz knocking down the bat, and that's the one I'd want to be at.
For a Sabres fan, that's an excellent choice. It really is. I thought you were going to say foot in the crease against the Stars, but, you know.
I go way back.
Yeah, that game was. That comes on YouTube. I'll watch that once in a while. I might even have that on video cassette somewhere. I really do. I think I might have
Keep
that.
your mouth shut, Gardner.
All right.
I know where you're going with that. Keep your mouth shut.
All right. Hockey Unreal. If you could go back in time and attend any event at all, at any time in history, what sporting event would that be?
Obviously, either the 93 Stanley Cup Final Game 5, which I do have on VHS tape, by the way. You're completely correct when you joke about that sort of thing. And or 2010, Crosby's golden goal in overtime. Canada, US.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. Ron's got a whole shelf of videotapes from Canadian championships. He's even got some reel-to-reels and some 8mm back there. You know, when I visited him years ago, I was like, wow, look at his collection of Montreal stuff. Look at this tape, you know. Anyway, all righty. So that's some good answers there. Some good answers. As we have, Bill says he doesn't like the jersey now. Now that it's the Eichel jersey. That's kind of funny.
Too late, Bill.
And Bernard Strom comes by. Thanks, Bernie, for coming by. All right, Dave, let's start with you. So, let's talk about, what got you into gaming? What are some of the first games that you actually played? And then bring us up to where you are now.
Well, I think the first games I played, I used to be that guy who would get the Street and Smiths magazines and look at the APA and the Strat ads, and then I would send in and get those brochures, and I'd look at them, and finally I ordered the 1968 AFL from Stratomatic Football.
Oh, wow.
That was the first ever thing I owned. The sporting thing, and then a kid moved in down the block who played Strat baseball, and he had the 1969 National League.
Ooh.
And that got me playing Strat baseball. And then after that, it was just like I was down the rabbit hole, right? I was a big Strat guy for like 10, 15 years playing baseball and football. But the hockey game didn't come along for a while. In fact, there weren't a lot of hockey games back then, right? There was Nagamco and Pro Table Games and PTG hockey, and you had Rod Gilbert's Violent World of Professional Hockey.
Why would they ever call something like that the Violent World of Pro Hockey? I've seen that floating around up there. In fact, I think that's everyday hockey now, right? I think everyday
hockey now, right? Right.
Why would you call a game that and expect anybody to get it for their kid for Christmas?
I guess they were like, let's see, Gil Hodges pennant race. That's our baseball one. Let's call the hockey one the Violent World. I don't know.
That is nuts. So
and then I got into Face Off. I think the first season of Face Off, which is a precursor to Hockey Bones, was the 76-77 season. And I really enjoyed it. And then the next season was the season that Stratomatic came out with their first set, which was 77-78. And I was like, oh, I love Strat. Everything Strat. So I was like, I didn't order Face Off for 77-78 because I thought Stratomatic hockey, it's going to be the most perfect hockey game I've ever seen. And then I was like, I guess I'm going back to Face Off. It spoiled me. Face Off kind of spoiled me at that point. But and then I bought every season up past then, and then got involved helping people with the game. So,
that's great. Hockey and Real. How did you start getting into these tabletop sports games?
Just as a kid, having some magazines, hockey news and what have you, and there were these black and white ads for Stratomatic in or near the backs of some of them, and just the advertising worked really well. I can't remember specifically. I can't remember it verbatim. But it just basically like manage your own team and just a lot of the stuff that it had. And it seemed like you could go above and beyond and deeper than you could in existing hockey video games at the time. This would have been back in the early mid 90s. And so I think it was maybe 10 years old, maybe 11 when I first ordered Stratomatic, and had a heck of a time actually figuring out how to play it out. I actually remember my mother, who to this day knows very little about hockey, and sitting there reading maybe this is more about me, but trying to figure out and learn how to play that game, especially once you get into advanced and super advanced. I mean, the basics pretty easy to pick up, but then after you play through the basic a few times and you kind of want to, I don't know, ramp it up a little bit. And for a couple of years played that. And as I've said before in some other videos and stuff on my channel, got away from it for a little while, and then just kind of in my mid 30s wanting to get back into hockey gaming and looking to get back into something. And so looking at Strat, looking at existing games, thinking about getting Strat on the PC, but not really being a big PC gamer, and discovering that even though, like Dave said, there weren't a lot of hockey games then, the Nagamco and PTG and a few others that he mentioned when Face Off came out in 76, 77, I feel to this day that there kind of still aren't, relative to baseball and other sports. But there was definitely enough out there that, I just got back into a few of them. And as far as Hockey Bones and the barrier to entry and everything, and talking about me staying patient with you, I was there, for the first year or so that I had that game. Similarly, it just sort of sat aside. I can't remember if it was in a desk or just on a shelf or something. My wife could probably tell you better than I could. But it's goodness. I actually created a few of my own little games as well when I was, back again the Stratomatic early playing days when I was much younger. Really nothing of substance that I'd ever want to show now, but it's. I don't know. Sorry, this is kind of a roundabout answer. I have a bad habit of doing that.
Reminds me, my friend and I, the one who introduced me to Stratomatic baseball, his father was a boxer, like a club boxer, basically. But him and I invented Stratomatic boxing. We had these cards like where you'd have 1, 2, 3, the fighter's offense, and 4, 5, 6 would be his defense. And now you have those uppercase home runs in Stratomatic, so we'd have uppercase knockouts.
It's similar in university, actually. I built first the seminar in creativity, and I kind of built a Stratomatic-esque boxing simulation. Cards and dice and paper, but yeah.
You should talk to Al, Red Sox fan. I'm sure he would be glad to help you to redesign that.
Yeah, Al loves his boxer, that's for sure.
I got to say, before you get into that I'd heard of face-off hockey when I was in college. That's where I was introduced to Strat hockey. The similar to, you saw the ads in the magazines for the baseball and stuff, but it just was no one didn't think about playing a solo game. That just wasn't heard of then, and didn't really have anyone to play with. But we had been taught Strat hockey in college, and a couple of friends of mine talked about face-off hockey being a deeper game. And this was before Dave, I think, got involved with that. And so I'm very curious to know, what they found deeper about it, just based on the brief conversation we had earlier. But they thought that even at the time, 91, 92, that it was a deeper game than Stratomatic.
Dave, why don't you talk about the history of Hockey Bones a little bit?
Yeah, so Hockey Bones actually was, again, it was Face-Off before Hockey Bones. And Face-Off came about from two guys in New York, or one guy in New York and one guy in Indianapolis or something. Bob Frost and Harry Conover, they had created a PTG hockey league through the back pages of All Sports Digest, Oh,
my goodness.
They were constantly fiddling with this game and making changes and sending out notes to everybody in their league. We're going to change this, we're going to change that. And then finally they said, we're going to make our own hockey game. So that's how they made Face-Off. Kind of was born from them wanting to improve PTG.
Now, what's PTG?
PTG was pro table games from the Hendricksons, in Minnesota that make all like Big League Manager and Gamco and all those. And it was really the first game that measured player. Up until then, all the hockey games were just like, how many goals did you score? How many assists did you get? Mm-hmm. And it was the first game that really said, how often does this guy shoot versus how often does this guy shoot? And what's his shooting percentage and what's his goalie's save percentage? Like PTG was doing hockey analytics before, they even called it hockey analytics, right? It was the first game that was really based on that. And that's the driver that's really drives the whole engine of Face-Off. And then Hockey Bones is, if I get the shots on goal right and I get the shooting percentages and the save percentages right, if I build all the mechanics to make those things happen, I'm going to get a super accurate game, And so Face-Off was born in the 70s out of their sort of dissatisfaction with some of the holes in PTG. So then Face-Off was run by Bob Frost and Harry Conover for a while. Conover dropped out. It was Bob Frost's game. He wanted to give it up, but he sold it to a guy called David Landsman in Pennsylvania. And that's when I first got involved in helping create the cards. Was back actually in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, because Bob Frost had written all these programs to make the cards, but he'd done it on like a Radio Shack TRS-80 and BASIC, like nobody had the equipment and nobody knew the language. And so basically I had him send me all the basic code. I had to redo the whole thing in a new language. And then I made the cards for Dave Landsman for quite a while. And they carried it through the 90s. About the 2000, he got involved with Rick Cole and Ron. I can't remember his last name. But they were actually doing research for the book that turned into Total Hockey.
Oh.
So they were involved with the Hall of Fame, and they had all these original score sheets, and that's how they ended up doing those 66, 67, 67, 68, and those early 60 seasons. They used all that data that went into Total Hockey to make those seasons because those stats really weren't available then. And then Tim picked it up off of David, and we switched it over to another computer language. And so then he had a guy doing the cards for him up until the 2015, 2016 season. And that guy had to drop out, and it was like he was coming to the point where he couldn't make the cards anymore. He didn't know how, he wasn't a programmer, right? So I had to step in again and translate the programs like a second time to where we're at today. So there was one point where, it was kind of dicey around the 15, 16, but since then we've come out with 30 seasons since then.
Yeah, there's quite a few now.
You've been cranking them out, yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. Tim's a great guy to work with, and he lets me really hone all the bits and pieces. But all this started with a Radio Shack computer from the 1970s, and that's where we are in 2023 now. So.
Now, which seasons did you create? Because I think I remember you saying that all the seasons that are available, and what seasons are available, by the way?
Oh, okay. So I think we're right, 66, 67, all the way up through 83, 84 right now. We have some scattered 80s and 90s, and then there's some from the Landsman era that are still available, which go from 2000 all the way up to 2023. And I've been involved in 2015, 2016, up until 2023, and a lot of the old sets that filled in the gap between 69, 70, and 2000. I'm the one that filled in those because at that point they only existed in the original face-off format, which wasn't really compatible now because they used different codes, and Bob Frost had always been tinkering with the game, so I wanted to make all the cards consistent so you could put a great team set together. And
I see, okay. Yeah, I'm playing 71, 72, as everybody know. I played the finals. Is that one season that you did, or was that an older season?
No, that's one I did, yeah.
Okay.
And that one is not one that I had a face-off set to base it off of. That one required a lot of legwork, basically.
Okay.
If you play the original face-off and went away and come back, what are the differences between that and the current version of Hockey Bones?
Well, if you there's actually a thing that I wrote because it got so confusing at one point that's up on the Hockey Bones site for download. It just basically says, here's all the things they changed in the Hockey Bones from 76, 77 up until now. And if you got this card set and you're like, there's a lowercase t here. What the hell is that? So it would explain that, or what does this symbol mean, right? There's There's a percent sign. What does that mean?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the newer cards. Hockey Unreal, you have some of the original looking cards, I think, or the original cards, because I've seen you play, and you got some really funky symbols on your cards.
Yeah, I'm playing my way to those new cards. I have sets from, I think, 70 or 71 onward in the newer cards, but I'm still working with the ones that I originally bought for late 60s.
Yeah, they got some of the symbols are really big, like the arrows and everything, and they've shrunk them down a little bit so that a little more eye pleasing, I think. But I think I do like the newer sets better. Hockey Unreal, what is it about this game that kind of, I guess this might be your favorite game. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, so you play some other games, but what is it about Hockey Bones?
I would say it's unrivaled individuality from player to player. Glad that you came back to me. So especially going through my head, I started to talk about Bones with the previous question and then kind of got caught up. But so again, back to like Stratomatic versus existing hockey games. I knew Stratomatic well enough to realize that this is, a more detailed and definitely a more realistic game, far more realistic than anything that Sega or Super NES or whatever was offering at the time. And even still, I kind of stopped playing hockey video games after PS2. But when you look at a hockey, just for comparison, when you look at a hockey video game and you have a player that's, say, rated 98 and another player that's rated, 95, 96, 97, and you wonder, like, how can a computer really enable those differences, like a difference of 1% or 2 or 3% in ability? But when you look at a Hockey Bones card, and it's the grid of 66, but essentially because you're working with the 3D6, you have 216 channels or whatever to work with. You can there is a way basically to allow for those minuscule, like 1 or 2% differences in ability between a player. Like you can have a player with something really good that the white dice combine for a roll of 6 versus a roll of 7, and obviously the player that's slightly better, 7 comes up a little bit more often when you're rolling the 2 white dice, and so that player will have whatever it is, rebound, automatic shot, or like a 13 or a 14, which is basically an automatic shot 99% of the time on their card, in the good areas. And then players that are not quite as good but capable of doing really good things in the ice sometimes, they might have similarly, like the good stuff might just be a little lower in the card. It might come up with a white dice roll of 4 or 10 or something like that. So there's just the ways, when you really get into the what's the word I'm looking for here? I knew this was going to happen. But when you really get into I don't know if I want to see the meat and potatoes or when you really just kind of get down to the essences or the elements of it. It's again, to go back to what I started off with there, like the individuality from player to player, and that they have a system, that they have an engine to work with that can do that for hundreds and now even numbering into near, thousands of players season after season after season for decade after decade. It's really an amazing engine. That's cool.
One of the things I take real pride in the thing for Hockey Bones is that we're one of the few hockey games that actually measures like time on ice. So like, you've got those guys who come out for their, 12 minutes a game, and maybe they score 25, they score 20 goals, but they're only out there 12 minutes a game. There's like those snipers, but they can't play defense. So that's why they're only out 12 minutes. And then you got some other guys who are out there, like a third of the game, 20 minutes. They're out there playing. And the other thing I think, too, that we do super well is the penalties. So like you have a guy with, say, 52 minutes in penalties. Well, one guy, maybe that's 26 minors, and some other guy, it's 2 misconducts, 2 majors, and 3 minors or something. Their cards are going to look super different, even though they both got 52 minutes in penalties, because somebody's going to be getting in fights and getting misconducts, and somebody's just going to have tons of X's because they take minors every time they're out there.
Yeah. I remember there was one game I played, and it was a third or fourth line guy, and I'm looking at his card. I'm like, this can't be. This guy's terrible. He's on the fourth line. And his shooting range was like way up there. But like you said, he's only going to get out there 6-7 minutes a game, and maybe he potted in a handful of goals, so he's not going to touch the puck much, but when he does, he might cash in. But at first glance, it's like, oh, I'm putting this guy in the first line. But like you said, if you do that, you're gaming the game at that point there, because that guy's not supposed to be on the first line playing 20 minutes a game.
Yeah, I think my favorite example of that is like Guy Schweenard of the Flames, who was like, could score like crazy, but man, he was a sieve, you know. So he was never out there very long, but when he was out there, he was, you know, dishing out assists and scoring goals, but they would never put him on a top line because he's just, you know, too much of a liability.
Right. Now, Ron, let's get to Ron for a second here. Ron, you actually did play some hockey bones with me. You bought the game. You bought a season or two. I know at least one season you bought. And we played, and you kind of enjoyed it. So as you were kind of like the latecomer to hockey bones, what were your thoughts on it?
I was the one that played with two of the most powerful offenses of the 70s and didn't get a goal.
Yeah, we did play a period and didn't get a goal, right?
We didn't get a goal. Billy Smith threatened to kill his entire defense because he had to, stand on his head.
You picked it up so fast. Like you picked it up way faster than me, and I'm smarter than you too. That's the thing. You know what I mean? We've already established that.
Would you like a mirror there, Narcissus, to finish the show? What I picked up on, I've played Strat off and on for the last 30 years. And so the way the dice come up in that, really, stuff I was familiar with. I like the way that it handled defense. That if you're the left wing on one team, it's the right side that you're going off on the face, and how they all three of those skaters interact with the possible offensive play coming through. The fact that the higher the number that you roll, the better the chance. So someone who, let's face it, there's quite a few players that are stay-at-home defensemen that you never want taking a shot. And if you get a low number, as far as the defensive number is concerned, you're just having that puck taken away, which is much better than, you're taking your 40 shots per game, but, Jerry, Yeah, it's not Denny Potvin taking those shots. It's Bert Marshall. Good job. Good job. Would you just roll that seed? Because that can be frustrating too. And Strat when you roll, and especially games like Strat in Action PC where defensemen take seemingly an inordinate amount of shots that are going to be bad. Now in Strat, if you roll that 8, you get the rebound and good things can happen. But So having that, it did feel more individualized. And I'm not the hockey fan that Gardner is, and I'm certainly not the hockey guru that the three of you are. But I also wasn't intimidated by the extra goodies for it as well. Granted, we never had a penalty, and we never had a goal, which is kind of strange because we used the, 76, 77 Canadians. I think they spot everyone 5 so they can score 7. But no, I enjoyed it in the back and forth, and it wasn't that difficult to pick up. Yes, I can feel the love tonight. Thanks, Charles. It'd be something that I'd like to get to know a little bit more about. Not that I want to do a lot of super deep hockey playing, but I enjoyed it. I really did.
Yeah. The one thing that was really neat about it is I was playing 92-93. I'm playing a 92-93 Bruins replay. I'm going to play every game. And I think I got 9 games in, and then I got crazy busy, and I haven't been back to it. But the first opening night game against the Hartford Whalers, I think it was, at the Boston Garden, Hartford had this guy that played 1 game. And he was carded. And his card was just one big X. Every single roll was a penalty. And when I looked up, he picked up I want to say he picked up like 10, 12, 13 minutes of penalties in that one game that he played. He never played again that season for the Whalers. But you guys had him carded, and he did pick up a bunch of penalties because every time he touched the puck, it was a penalty. Let's talk about how some, not all the seasons, but a lot of the seasons card every player. I want to ask Hockey Unreal first, and then I'm going to come to Dave on this. Hockey Unreal, how important is it to you to have every player carded?
Honestly, it isn't. I tend to play these games, the Bones especially, I play it differently with this kind of ongoing project that's, stagnated of late, where I'm just putting together teams anyway. I'm just it's like a best on best fest, basically. So having every player carded, I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt if you have a game that's already really good. It's icing on the cake. But I'm much more concerned about some of the stuff that you say. It's in your criteria about hockey games that you enjoy, and like fun was basically at the top and things like that. Like I would rate that much higher than having every player available. Yeah. Okay,
let's switch over to Dave now. To me, like I say, some of the games I played didn't have everybody carded. And again, are you really concerned about a guy that played one game? So I see where that can come into play. Why create a card for that? But that game I played was fun. And since then, I played some baseball games that have everyone carded. And, now Hockey Bones pretty much does. Not every season. We'll get on to that in a minute. But most seasons now do have everybody player carded. Since I started playing games that have everybody on the team, I found that I really do like that. And because now I can go back in time and I can go to, Hockey Reference, which I live on, and I can click on a game, and if I have the season, I can play that game, and everybody that played in that game will play on my tabletop, whether they played 2 games or 1 game or whatever team they played on. And I really like that I can go back into history and play a game with the guys that were in that game. So for me, since I started playing games with everyone's carded, it's not a deal breaker for games that don't have everyone carded. But if I have the choice between A and B, and A's has everyone carded and B don't, I'm going to choose A most of the time. So what was the idea behind carding every player in Hockey Bones?
Well, let me talk first about why they didn't used to card every player. They used to have a cutoff at like 10 games. Some seasons it was 5 games. And the reason there was it was all print product, right? And so as a guy selling a product to you, if I tell you I can give you this product for $40 and it has all the players that played 10 games or more, but would you pay $10 more to get all these guys that played 1, 2, 5, 7 games? Most people would say, just give me the $40 package, right? They don't want... so when it was primarily a print product, it was just a matter of economics. You're going to sell more card sets if you're not making people pay extra to print those cards that, they're marginally going to play with anyway. But once we went to like the PDF model where, it's up to you to print it out and cut it out. You don't want to cut out those guys or print those guys. Don't print them. Don't cut them. You don't have to, right? But if you do, like I do, I'm like you, I want them all, So that's why once I started making the sets, they're all going in, It's up to Tim whether he wants to print them all. He does, but, it's like I'm doing them all because that's, how I like it myself as a gamer. But that's why they didn't. It was just a matter of economics. But now you're in the PDF model.
Right.
There's no sense not doing them all.
Yeah. I think Season Ticket Baseball does that, is that if you get the PDF, you get everyone. In fact, how they do it was kind of neat, is I was playing a game and there was a guy that was on 2 teams. So he was on the Houston roster and on the Cincinnati roster. And so you didn't have to go fumbling through the other team to find a card to play. He's on Cincinnati for half the season. He's on the Cincinnati, he's carded with Cincinnati. Hockey Bones is very intriguing how they do it, how they have, if a guy played on 2 teams, he has a card, but then it's split between like New York, Vancouver, let's say, and it's in its own pile. So I have all my teams separated, and then I have another whole, packet of guys that played on multiple teams. So if he's not in the team, I know where to go to get him. So that's kind of how I separate my guys.
By the way, when I do those combination cards, I always do my best to list the teams in the order that they played in the season.
Yeah,
so I
yep.
just don't put the two teams on there in whatever order. I try to get it. So, like, if you're sorting those out and you only want to do the playoffs, you only care where they ended up, you could just look at the
second side,
the second card and put them there.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because
if you want to start a full season replay, take all the ones from the first part. So,
do you know what I do sometimes? Actually, is when another season just arrived today. I got 80-81, so it came in the mail today. You know, so I'm going to play the North Stars. I'm going to play the 80-81 North Stars a little bit. But what I like sometimes is I'll go to usually drive through, and you can click on the roster and see the players that you're going to get, and I like seeing the guys that played on different teams. It's really kind of fun. You know, it's like, oh, I had no idea he was traded to this team. And, oh, what's this guy doing on this team? It's kind of fun seeing the, you know, like I said, especially, like, was it 75, 76, you see Eddie Jackman, New York, Detroit. It's still a heartbreaker, but it's kind of fun to see.
I have to give a shout-out to two guys I saw in the chat. Charles, he's my board game geek buddy, and ID Jester. I love his channel because he's like me. He's not just a sports gamer. Like, he does everything, you know. I love his channel for it because he loves to do those every type of game. So
nice. Ron, you were going to say something?
I got a card-making question.
Sure.
Without giving away what goes inside the Hershey's Kiss, how does Hockey Bones deal with players who are with the extreme? Let's say, you know, Connor McDavid this year's 160 points in an era where a 100-point season is tremendous. Gretzky, 81-82. Not to pick on Stratomatic, that card in Stratton 81-82 isn't going to give you anywhere near 92 goals. So how do you handle trying to get that right? Because, you know, how do you get that right, or how do you try to get that right?
Well, I think Hockey Unreal touched on it. On one thing is the fact that we have like a breakdown of like 216 different possibilities on that card, so we can kind of fine tune it a lot more than just like 11 to 66, where you got like 36, right?
Yeah, 36 in the APA model. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's easier to fine tune there, but I've actually had to do things where I've realized like players like a Gretzky or a Lemieux were not getting, because originally there's like a sort of base template for a card, and then you overlay those base templates with players' things. And at one point I said, you know, these players like Gretzky, they're going to score their goals, all that's in there, but their passing wasn't going to be as good as it should be. So I actually wrote like special code that looks to say, if this guy has way more assists like than the rest of the league, he's going to get, I'm actually going to overwrite what I would normally put some in this field and put a pass there. And does that mean he doesn't get as many infractions as he, like a normal card would? Yeah, but then that's how those players operate. So I actually, for those players, shooting and scoring is handled within the 216. It was the passing I had to make adjustments for to make those players more keep the puck in possession of their team, right? Because that's what they do.
Right. Is there one card or one player that when you were done with the process that you went, oh my goodness, I really can't wait to play such and such?
Oh, I think I see that every year. I go through the set and I go, oh man, look at that guy. And you know what really I enjoy is when I see a guy that in most hockey games would not get any attention from his card, but in Hockey Bones, and I'm trying to think of who the guy, it's a guy on Detroit. I can't think of the player, a recent player on Detroit, and he is just so good in so many other facets of the game other than scoring that you look at his card and you go, this is a guy I want on the ice, even though he's not going to score. He's just got a cool card. And I'm like, this is the only game I think that would capture this guy's worth
right.
Accurately because of all the other things he brings with like the forecheck and the intimidation and the penalty kill and, that kind of stuff. Like, those are the kind of guys I kind of get excited about too, where I see some guy like, I would never paid attention to this guy looking at the stat sheet. When I make a Hockey Bones card for him, I go, this guy is pretty good for his team. I see why he's there every year.
Hockey, there must be, when you're going through the cards or the PDFs, there must be, who are you looking at to go, oh, I can't wait to play? Obviously, it's not anyone from Montreal this year, which that's a different story. Maybe you won't lose a full healthy year, but when you go through and get a new set, either a new one or historical, are there specific people that you're looking at and going, oh, I can't wait to see how this comes out?
Absolutely, because again, I do drafts basically. Like, that's how I assemble my own teams, and I do drafts. And of course, in doing those drafts, I'm looking through all the cards and seeing who's good, basically, who can I assign to different teams. And so that's the short answer is yes to that. Definitely. Okay. There's different players that I look through. Yeah.
Dave, is there one card that sticks out that when you got, you talked about the player from Detroit, but whether it was a Gretzky or a Lemieux or a Dryden or whatever, or even.
Yeah, I think that 7, because I just got done with the 70-71 playoffs, that 70-71 Dryden rookie card where he played 13 games in the regular season and he had like a 9.58 save percentage. Like, that card is just incredible. And yet somehow that Canadiens team lost the finals to the Rangers in my replay.
Oh,
I
wow.
couldn't believe it because nobody could score on him for the first 3 series. And even then they were like winning 2-1 or 3-2. But that card, or the one Bobby Orr card from 70-71 too, just they're just cool, or any of those Gretzky cards. I mean,
have you ever created a card, in how you ever do it, and looked at it and just went, no, and you said I need to fix it for whatever reason, whatever was a penalty, a goal scorer, a passer, a goal. Have you ever plugged in everything and said, geez, I really need to rework this?
I have not done that. I have a great guy, Jim Gross, who's doing card reviews for me, works with me on reviewing the card set. So the number of missteps I think we've had in recent years has dwindled to almost nothing. He's fantastic helping me. But I just remember there was a Rick Middleton card, and I looked at it, and I looked at where his penalty X was, and I said, this is wrong. I know this X, given his penalty minutes and his penalty matrix, I said, this X can't be right. And I went back to my Excel spreadsheet, and I mistyped something.
Oh. He's my second favorite Bruin behind Rick Middleton.
And I had to, but it's not something that jumped out at you, and there's probably no one but me that would have looked at that and said, that X is not in the right place.
Hockey and
what I like is when there's times when, and I think we went through this, Dave, right, with the Canada Cup set with, Esposito's major, right?
Yeah.
Where it looks like it's wrong, but when you go back and you break down all the math and look at all the things, and you're like, no, that's right. It's the dice, maybe.
Yeah. So that was the 72 Summit Series, Canada-Russia. I picked up that off a drive-through, and I played that through, and that come out with a 4-4 tie. That's how that series was dead even. But, I think it was Game 2, Phil Esposito got a major, and then in Game 3, he got 2 majors. And I'm like, that's a lot of majors to be happening there. And so when I contacted you, I think you said something like, I think you've reached a limit on majors, so just make it a minor next time. So you got to homebrew that in. But, I did have a weird thing like that where I just kept whatever dice I rolled, it was coming up with the M, and I was just like, it's another major.
It was really, it's tough. That was one of the tough things when you're basing it off real stats and you have a short series, it's tough. But by the way, I have an exclusive for your podcast tonight, Dave.
All right, hang on. We must have a breaking news. What do we got? Oh, that's not it. That's not it. That's all right. Go ahead with the breaking news.
So this will be the first time I've committed to this, but the next set that's coming out, I thought it was going to be 73, 74 WHA. That was my intent for 22-23. But given a recent development, it's actually going to be the 59-60 season.
Really?
The original six.
59-60, yeah. Somebody has been asking about those, and I said, it's just like not possible unless somebody wants to go through and scrape every score sheet for all the penalties. And then I got an email from Jim Bross, the guy who already checks my things for me. He goes, it's funny you say that because I went through the 59-60 season, and I have a total breakdown for every player on every penalty that they took for that season. I said, for all the help you've given me putting these sets together and you have the data, that's next.
Wow. So what was the other draw to 59-60? Like, what was the big thing about that season?
Well, A, we haven't done it, and B, we have the data for it, right? Anything before 66, just been hesitant because, we really need or want all the as much data as we can get, right? Especially penalties, super important to me. That's like the trademark of Hockey Bones for me is like the penalties and all that.
Right.
And if we have that, and recently was able to find somebody who could scrape all the WHA box scores and get me all the penalties for them. So, at one point I was like, nope, nothing before 66. Nope, no WHA.
I bought a book, and it was a big, thick WHA book. Did we have him on the show? We interviewed the guy that wrote
from Phoenix. Yeah,
he was from Phoenix. He's a college professor from Phoenix that wrote a book on the WHA. Okay,
he was interested in the Roadrunners.
Yeah,
right.
And it's this thick book that covers all the seasons, and it has the stats in there. It doesn't have every box score in there, but it breaks down so many things.
Every goal scorer.
I have that book, and that's another reason why I'm revisiting the WHA.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. That's pretty good.
59-60 was the year that Chicago played Detroit, right, in the finals.
I'm trying to
wasn't that a Canadians season?
Or was that their fifth? I can't tell the story if the Canadians were in the final.
But I figure it's only 6 teams. There's only 138 players. It's going to be a nice set if you want to pick it up on drive-through cards in a printed format, right? Because it's going to be a nice small set for people.
That was Canadians Maple Leafs and a 4-0 Canadian sweep.
All right, so that was the fifth in a row then.
And they had
the Hawks were in the playoffs, and the Bruins and Rangers were still in their not so good years.
Jacques Plante and Johnny Bauer went head to head in that series.
Yeah, like the year that was Boom Boom Jeffrey won the scoring title or something like that.
Yeah,
and also Richard's last.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard, Maurice, and Henry, and Beliveau, and Doug Harvey, and a few guys like that. Toronto.
Well, Hall of Famers in
Red Kelly,
set.
Bobby Bond for Toronto, Tim Horton. Yep.
Yep.
So,
I figure, it's a nice thank you to Jim. It's a nice little set for people and for everyone who's been asking for a long time for something before 66, 67. I think it's a nice little set to do, so I'm going to start working that next week.
Now with newspapers.com and websites like that have complete runs of papers. Newspapers.com doesn't have the Toronto Star, but it does have the complete run of the Montreal Gazette. And you go back. So how easier would it be to get all that information now that a lot of it is in, I wouldn't say the public domain because you got to pay for it, but.
Well, when I went back and looked, the box scores now on Hockey Reference, every season, at least the ones I look back to like 59-60 and 58-59. The box scores have the penalty breakdown that we need. It's just a matter of somebody collecting it and organizing it into the right, because we will check minor, double minor, coincidental minor, double minor, major with retaliator, like we got them all in there.
Nice. I want to go jump back to Hockey Unreal for a second. When you're playing Hockey Bones, has there been a moment or a favorite moment or something that, I don't want to say shocked you, but you got results in this game and you were like, holy cow, that was awesome? Have you had a moment playing that's something that sticks out to you, that whether it was a certain player or a goaltender or someone having a great game or something, is there something that's jumped out to you off the top of your head?
Oh, goodness, a few things. The first one that came to mind was Craig Rivet. It's a little inside thing when I did a draft league with 5 other players, and I'd sort of badmouth Craig Rivet in the video. Not really bad, but just kind of, talked a bit of trash because Canadians need a really shaky debut. I remember watching, I'm pretty sure it was his first game, and so just as a lark, another player in the league that we did, our little league, signed Craig Rivet to his team for one game. And so I had to put him in his very low, scoring range on the ice. And lo and behold, he got a goal. So, there's been a few wow moments. That was kind of a funny / wow. Yeah.
Nice. I had that happen in a game I played too. It must have been a Bruins game, and they just couldn't get anything in range. I think I went into the third period before any shots were in range. It was just a bad roll night. And they finally came back and tied it up when they finally started getting shots in range. And then it was the last roll of the game. And for some reason, the third line was out for the other team. And some third-line winger I had never heard of with a ridiculously low scoring range rolled in the range and scored the game-winning goal to beat the Bruins in the last roll of the game. And it's somebody I had never heard of before. It was just, you got to be kidding me. But it happens, and that's the fun part about it. So that stuff can happen. One thing that jumped out at me when I first started playing this game compared to some of the other games is I really like how simple the line changes are. That's one thing I really like about this game, and how the line changes work is that, every 2 minutes I change the lines. That's just what I do. At the 2-minute mark, the rules say, and I'm pretty sure, whoever has the puck stays on the ice, everyone else changes, and then you finish the play with that particular skater. And then when the play ends, then you flip him. So he stays out a little bit long because he has the puck. I like that. I think that's simple. And what that has done so many times for me, and again, just playing the, the Rangers Bruins 71-72, you'll get, I think Gilbert stayed out and the third or fourth line come out, and so he scored a goal with guys he doesn't normally play with because but that happens in hockey. You have a line change, one guy gets off early, one guy gets stuck in the corner, and he combines for a goal with someone that he normally wouldn't come, like McGregor or somebody like that. He gets a goal, so it's Gilbert from McGregor and Stemkowski. He doesn't usually play with those guys. He was playing with Hatfield and Rattel. And that's what's kind of fun is that somebody will get stuck out there for that little bit extra, and it'll give you a nice little box score. It's that's kind of neat because it's not always the same guys getting the assists with everybody else. So I love how it handles the line change. In fact, I've incorporated that into a couple other games I play where it's like, I like this line change. We'll just keep this guy out there, change everybody else, and then when the play's over, we'll change him. And I think that works really nice. I like that. And the other thing is the penalties. And maybe, Dave, you can talk a little bit about this. I find cards and dice hockey games, especially the longer play games, penalties, the game just grinds to a halt with penalties. And I played so many games, and I don't want to mention any of the other games, but you probably all know what the games I play. And I sit there, and it's like, okay, let me go make a coffee and figure out how we're going to figure out this penalty. There's one game I played.
You're going to pick on Laurie Boschman hockey like that. We've had this conversation before.
I'm surprised Hockey Unreal hasn't picked up Laurie Boschman hockey. It's a little card game. Somebody got it at a garage. In Canada, they had it in the garage, and I bought it. And somebody commented on Laurie Boschman the other day. So more people need to play Laurie Boschman hockey. It's kind of a simple game. But anyway, getting back to the penalty thing, there's a couple games I play that I do not know how to do the penalties. I just don't. And no matter how many times I read the rules, I cannot figure it out. That's just me. The one game that I can now, some of the other games that I'm getting better at, but this game here, the way it does the penalties, it is just penalty. Okay, let's roll the dice and let's look at the little chart on the card because everything's on the card, and let's see what it's going to be. And if it's a dash, it's just him. 2 minutes. That's simple. If it's something else, well, now we got to take a look. Is it co-minors? Is it a fight? Is it going to be a major in a game? I mean, then there's a little side chart that you go to, but I've never, ever gotten stuck with the Hockey Bones penalty procedure. In other games, I do all the time. So, Dave, talk a little bit about that procedure, because that's one of my favorite things about the game is that I don't fear the penalties like I do in other games.
Well, I don't know, because I was going to say I'm with you on that point. Like, well, I think for me it's different because, like, I'm one of those guys who meticulously checks his line shifts. Like, a guy gets six shifts a game, he's getting 6 shifts. And then, like, 2 time sequences in, he gets a penalty, and I'm like, what do I do? You know, like, did he get a shift? Did he not get a shift? What am I going to, it's like, am I going to make that up later? So, like, penalties, I'm like you. Sometimes I'll just say, I'm going to get a Coke.
Yeah, because I like to try to play it out, but there's some games I just don't know, and I just like it's like some games. Okay, penalty, check for misconduct, to do this, to do that. It's like, oh man, I don't know if I want to do that. But
yeah, I do like the Hockey Bone system that tells you, like, right on the player's card that you're looking at, this is a coincidental minor, and somebody's going off with them.
Yep, piece of cake. I do like that. That is so simple. Hockey Unreal, do you kind of agree with me on that?
Absolutely, and it's realistic too when you think about it. Even complex penalty situations. I mean, how often in a real game will you see where there's a line brawl or whatever, and it results in the officials kind of having a huddle for a few minutes afterward to sort out the penalties between teams. So I mean, what we talk about occurring in hockey games, and I agree with you, it's kind of the bane of a lot of hockey games, and it grinds them to a halt. But hockey's messy sometimes.
It is messy.
Yeah.
But sorting out penalties should not be messy. Yeah. And,
what do you mean you don't have Wes McCauley on speed dial for this situation?
Yeah. So those are my favorite things about the game is the line changes and the penalties. I think that they're very, very, very smooth. The other thing that's really neat about this game, and Hockey Unreal hammered this away, is there's one shot. There's one shot. There's my Boston accent. One shot in this game. There's not a ton of shots. And he kept bringing that up. He's like, there's one chart in this game.
Yes.
And now, to be fair, there's actually 2, because if you get if you have special occurrences on penalties or your bench minor or your injuries, you do need this one here. So technically there's 2 charts, but for the most part, everything you need is on this one chart. I love how you get your face-offs that you need a lot. You get your clearing ratings, your assists, and your retaliation all here. You get your team defense, which I refer to once in a while. I'm getting better at my team defense, memorizing it, but it's here if you want. So it's really only like the top half. Everything else down here is reminders on how to play. So it's nice just to be able to go, have the one chart there, and if this one comes up, I have it off to the side if I need it. The other thing that is mandatory, and I emailed him tonight and told him we were going to talk about him tonight, is the Peter Miller charts, which are up on the website. I believe they're on the website. They're the Hockey Bones quick reference, and these are a must. If you haven't got these, that's a little sticky I put on there to remind myself to check things. But if you are playing Hockey Bones, go get this, print these out, have them on your table, because they really do. Sometimes I overthink things. I'm like, how do I do this rebound again? He's got the rebound procedure here. You don't get to dig out the instructions, And what's great about this is the red 6. I call it the red 6. I don't know what the Game of Thrones equivalent of that would be, the Red Wedding, but the red 6, especially with power plays, is shorthanded or goalie pulls. Anytime it's not equal, the red 6 can really dictate a different play. It means, you can hang on to the puck, you can cough up the puck, something can happen and go to a certain player. So this is where the Peter Miller charts really come in handy. I really like them there, because it's like, okay, red 6, little red flag goes up. I need to check to see what's going to happen with this, So I do like that. So if you haven't got those, go to the website and get the Peter Miller helpers. And hopefully Peter's watching this. I told him to jump into the chat tonight, but Peter's watching this.
By the way, I just want to jump in and say, if you're ever having like a super stressful day and you just need to chill and unwind, go watch a hockey video from either Peter Miller or Hockey Unreal, and they just have that sweet, smooth FM voice. That is just like, oh man, I am so into what you're giving me right now.
I get it. Yeah, I love going to Hockey Unreal. And today we're going to play the 74 Flyers, and they're going to take on their arch rivals. This game had 397 penalty minutes. Sit back and enjoy the game. And you do. You mellow out and you enjoy the game. It's really, it's funny that you say that.
I wish I'd do it like you.
Let's see. Back to the chat room a little bit. Charles said here in the chat, I think that's my favorite thing about Hockey Bones is it keeps your eyes on the cards for most of the game. It does. It really does. You don't have to go to the charts very much. You focus on the table and you just follow the chart and just memorize the symbols and you're good to go. Ed says penalties in hockey in the late 70s NHL is a bookkeeping nightmare. Ed, we would have to agree with that. Yep.
You're going to join that line brawl, right?
Yeah.
You're going to take Terry O'Reilly and those shoes up in the stands and just stop it. Stop it right now.
And let's see. And Mike chimes in here. Have to thank Hockey Bones team for the Excel help. But that's one thing we haven't talked about. And Ed chimes in. The helper's a game changer. That's something I recently discovered. Because I went back to the site. I'm always like bouncing around on the site, looking at seasons and freebies and score sheets or whatever. And I found this helper, and I got it. I was like, I don't know what this is. And then I went back to it, and I was showing Ron the helper, and I was like, holy cow, this rolls all the dice. It has your charts built in on here, so you can play the game. So you get your face-offs on your computer. You get your assists. Everything is here. You don't even need any of the charts. It's all right here in the Excel. It rolls all the dice, so you can just go, like, okay, I'm going to roll this. Shot on net, shots in range, goalie check, goal. Or goalie check, save, and rebound clearing. And it just, you go right down the line. It snakes down like a dice roll, and you get all your rolls. And I am playing games so much faster. Not that it's a race, but I'm playing Hockey Bones so much faster because I'm not picking up and rolling several hundred times, because now it's like, boom. What happens to this 24-second segment? It's all there in the spreadsheet. All the dice rolls are done. Everything I need is there to complete the play. And it really makes resolving plays so much faster.
The stream that we did that I played, that's what was done on the helper.
Yeah. And some people like it, some people don't. Like Charles says, he can't stand digital dice rollers. And that's fine. But for me, I'm just enjoying the heck out of it, because I would play, and I talked about this on the show and my YouTube channel, I would get up in the morning when I was doing my 92-93 Bruins, and I would have a cup of coffee and I'd play the first period. And then it would take me half hour, 45 minutes. And then I'd go up and do some work, and then at lunch I might come down and play the second period. And then maybe when I get home from work, I would do the third period. That's kind of how I would play the game, or the next morning with coffee. With the helper, I can now do a game in one setting. And I think I timed myself one period if I really concentrated and didn't have Hockey Unreal on YouTube watching his thing or anything like that, you know what I mean? If I shut everything off, all the radios, and the dog didn't bother me, you know what I mean? And I did a period in 20 minutes. And it's like, man, if I could do a game in an hour and 15 minutes, that's in the time range that I could play a full game in one sitting, instead of saying this is going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours, so I'll do some in the morning, some at night. So that helper has helped me play way more Hockey Bones. I am playing more Hockey Bones now with that helper. Like I say, I zipped through the 71, 72. I zipped through the Summit Series. I've been flying through Hockey Bones with the helper. And some people like it, some people don't, but I found I really enjoyed it.
One thing I was thinking of as you were saying that is a lot of times over the years, people have come and said, hey, have you thought about adding this to the game or adding that to the game, or maybe you could do this or that. I go, it all comes back down to somebody's going to roll 4 6-sided dice, and the less times we have to have them do that, the better. Like you've probably seen some baseball games, like I'm not going to mention any names. It started out nice and simple, and then they started adding ballpark effects, and they added lefty righties, and they added evening mornings, and they added, switching infields. And then by the time, like you're looking at it and you're going like, I just want to roll 2 dice and see if it's a hit. right? So a lot of times when people have said you could add this or that, we're just like, you know what? It represents the hockey game pretty well, and as it is right now, you can roll 4 6-sided dice and get good results. That's where we're staying.
You can customize it on your own too. Sort of, if you don't mind chiming in there. That's one thing in some phone calls with Tim about the game, talking about it. And basically, as long as you don't then expect all of the results to come out as realistic, you're completely okay to on your own add and modify and do things like that too. The game.
That's a really good point.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, and that was a point that we were talking about that in Delphi. I think the three of us were talking about that in Delphi about, when I had come up with my own line change system where I had the 3-2-1 and I split it up over the course of one period. Now I just flipped the card and whatever line was there come out, and it was weighted heavily towards 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. But now with the spreadsheet now, the Excel, the helper, it's you can put in how many shifts they're supposed to get, and then it tells you who's supposed to come out. By the end of the game, it comes out pretty good. But when I was doing my system, I know you guys were chiming in, and in just what Hockey Unreal said, that you really need to look at how many shifts they get. If you expect this game to be accurate, you need to respect the game and keep those shifts in control. Like we talked about that third line guy that has a super high scoring range but only gets 6 minutes a game. You can't play him 20 minutes a game and expect to have accurate results, because he's going to be potting 3 or 4 goals a game because his card is designed to score a goal, but very rarely does he see the ice. So I think that was a good point you guys made is keep in mind the shifts there. And on the Bones card themselves, they do have the little number that it says how many shifts they're supposed to play in a game. And I try to follow that the best I can, but sometimes I find that when I add them all up, it doesn't add up to the amount of shifts I need. So someone's going to get an extra shift here. And it's especially difficult in the 70s. So I'm playing 71, 72 in the playoffs. And there was some games that Boston and New York only dressed 5 defensemen. So you get lines 1, line 2. So you put out a line 3. Well, that means someone's going to have to come back out on the ice and play with that third defenseman. So what I was doing is I would have Orr and Park be that guy. You know what I mean? So I took their best defenseman, Orr and Park. So if the third line defenseman come out, Orr would stay with him. And if the third line defenseman come out for New York, Park would stay with him because you need to have 2 defensemen out there. That's just kind of how I did it. And every now and then, the third line would come up and say, okay, instead of Orr and Park, I'll go with the other guy and have him play. But so it's tough to get it accurate with 5 guys in defense.
Yeah, I want to remind that shift rating, although it is like per game, really, it's meant to be an average over the whole season. So, like, sometimes that guy may get 2 shifts. Sometimes he may get 8 shifts. But as long as he's in that ballpark over the whole amount of time that you play him, you're good. Only some people are really anal retentive and obsessive compulsive,
right,
like me, that have to have it, like per game. But, as far as everyone else playing, just keep in mind, as long as you're in the ballpark, you'll get really great results.
Right. All right, before we wrap up here, if there's anybody in the chat room that has any questions for either Dave or Hockey Unreal or myself or Ron, please let us know as we start to wrap up things here. We will go to the chat room right now if anybody's watching us live, if you have any questions, anything at all about Hockey Bones or things like that. So let's spin it back to Hockey Unreal. I'm going to kind of wind down with you a little bit. I guess we'll start with you. So again, just talk about some of your favorite things about the game, why you keep coming back to it, and just kind of wrap things up.
And on top of what I already said, I guess about really liking the individuality or individuation, differentiation from player to player, and it really works. And actually, I cut corners here and there, and I do it however badly and sloppily when I do it. I joke sometimes it's punk rock, and like real officials, I'll get some calls wrong. And you can go through my videos probably and find mistake after mistake, but they're there. But it is possible if you really if you put your nose to the grindstone, and if if you don't have any issues with your arm and dice rolling, it is possible to actually roll a complete game within an hour. Peter Miller's done it a couple of times. It was it was his video, sort of a dull, I think 1-1 tie between St. Louis and I shouldn't spoil the result. Actually, if anybody wants to go and watch it, that ultimately sold me on the game, even though itself it was kind of a lackluster hockey game. But just that you can have a game that's that detailed, and again, if you're really just at it, you can do it. Like I have some videos of complete games that are, ballpark 58 minutes or an hour and 3 minutes or so. I have other ones too where I'm a little more lax and laid back, and they're about an hour 20, hour 30. But to have a game that's that detailed that you can play in that amount of time, because I know that if you want to, not to say anything about other games that are, deeper or whatever, but then you're looking at maybe 2.5 hours or longer. So it's just, it's the right combination for me, at least, of depth and amount of time that it takes to play when I have the time for it. And it's just, I thought Charles's comment earlier, actually, to sort of go back to that about just the eyeball to player interaction that you have. And of course, how often that you're checking 3 players in the opposition when the dice are rolled for any one player that has the puck at any given time. You're sort of automatically drawn to look at a few players in the other team. And so there's just that constant back and forth interaction with the players in the team. And it feels hockey-like. So.
How does it work out? Because you do a lot of you don't do like the Stanley Cup Finals as much as I do or whatever. You do like some drafting. How does that work out when you're just pulling individual, maybe superstars out and playing drafts? Does it work out all right?
It often does in the end. I mean, I wrote a bit about that as well, but also, I just, when I do it like that, when I start playing around and tinkering with things, I don't expect the results to be realistic, even though often they do come out quite realistically. If you're going to throw things into a blender, then you can't really expect, players to perform as they would on their team that season and whatnot. But yeah, it's sorry.
It's a fun game. It is really fun.
Yeah. So Dave, what kind of a thrill is it for you to play a game from cards that you made?
It is a lot of fun, obviously, and part of the reason I got involved in making the cards was so for me, I want to play them. I love the game. I've been playing it for 45 years, right? Since 77 to now, right? And
46.
I don't love it any less than when I started playing it. And it's, looking at a new card set and then going, yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I know you want me to make some more card sets, but I got to play me some games. You can wait. I'm playing some games.
Is there do they have a greatest team set, or is there any talks about that, or is it just teams and seasons right now?
There is one 6 teams great team set.
Okay.
With, I think, the 71-72 Bruins, the 76-77 Canadians, the 92-93 Penguins. It's a really good set up on drive-through cards and not too expensive, I don't think. And there's a PDF. So there's a 6-team great team set, and it's got some of those great teams for sure.
How does the game do with cross-era teams? Let's say I wanted to take like a turn-of-the-century Devil neutral zone trap team and throw them up against a mid-'80s Edmonton team. How would the game handle that?
It works fairly well because you have to keep in mind that I don't want to go too deep in the concept of what we call normalization.
Right, but right.
But each season is normalized within itself.
Correct, right.
So, goalie is not measured on, if he has a 900 save percentage, let's say, he's not measured on his cards a certain way because he has a 900 save percentage. his card is based on the fact, is a 900 save percentage for this year really good? So like an 84, 85, if you have a 900 save percentage, you have a dryness card, right?
Yeah, that gets you statues in front of the old Met in Minneapolis if you have a 900 save percentage in 85. Yeah.
Exactly. So because they're normalized within the seasons, they do work pretty good crossways because they're related to how well they performed relative to their peers. Now, obviously, if you put 6 great teams together, you couldn't really predict the results, right? Because all of them are operating way above their peers, and their cards are going to be rated that way. So,
but a Mike Liuta or a Grant Fuhrer isn't going to give up 5 goals a game against a modern team.
That's correct, right? That's the upshot, right? He's going to play like a Brodeur against the 90s team because he was playing like a Brodeur against those 80s teams, even if the stats,
right.
From a cold standpoint, don't reflect that. Yeah. So,
but again, a Gretzky could score on a drive.
Yeah, Gretzky's going to score. I don't care where you put him. A Gretzky's going to score.
That's one thing we talk about all the time here in the show and in the community, Facebook, Delphi, whatever, is playing old teams against newer teams. And I think especially in football, that's where the disparity is going to be, whatever it is. Because, you're going to take, like, I always say, like, the 50 Browns or whatever, the 50 Packers, and then you're going to put them up against a great team from, a Patriots team or a Packers team from today or the Chiefs or whatever with Mahomes. I mean, it's almost not a fair fight because you're going to take a 50s Packers team that the longest field goal they can kick is probably 30 yards, and the punting is probably 25 yards, and they threw twice a game. It's two completely different styles of football. So it's almost like, how would you even create a set of cards so you could play the 50 Packers against the 2018 Chiefs?
Right. But when they opened up the passing rules, I just read this last week in 78, first year of the 16-game season and the more offensive passing rules, only one quarterback had ever topped 4,000 yards. It was Joe Namath. He threw one year for 4,007 yards. I think he's now 75th.
I think with hockey it might be a little bit easier. Maybe hockey and baseball rather than football, to have an old team play a new team and as cards and dice and play them head to head. I think it'd be a little bit easier than football.
One thing I can tell you from doing teams from 60s and 70s all the way to the modern times and looking at that thing, although like shooting percentages, save percentages vary over the seasons, the base thing of how face-off works is in allowing shots or generating shots. That's the main mechanic that the defense and offenses are rated for. And in that case, from this like 1960 up to 2023, the NHL is remarkably, and I mean remarkably, consistent in the number of shots they allow per game. They don't go really anywhere between like 31 to 34. Like it's the standard deviation from across all those years and like the number of shots allowed per game. It's super small. So that's one of the things that helps hockey across ages is they may be better at shooting percentages or save percentages, but the amount of shots allowed and given up, remarkably consistent.
Okay. If I were to take a team from this brand new 59-60 season that you're producing, whatever team, Stanley Cup champion, and then I played them against last year's Stanley Cup champion in Hockey Bones, cards and dice on the table, is that going to be a fair fight, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be.
Okay, so it's because I know there's some game, like I said, we talked about normalization, that it's like if you play a team from the 60s against a team from the 90s, and then you have to, change these ratings a little bit to make it fair for one of the other teams, So I didn't know if you...
The years where I would say that might not be so applicable is whenever you have right after a major expansion, like 74, 75, or, in the 90s when they brought in... San Jose, Tampa, Ottawa, in short succession. Those kind of like throw it off because the gap between the highest and the smallest balloons, right? Whereas in like 59, 60, and nowadays the gap between the best and the worst is not really, and since they're all rated against where they are relative to each other, playing a 59-60 against a 23, I would think that'd come out just fine.
That's something I might try. That's just something I figured Hockey Unreal would have done. A tournament of Stanley Cup champions.
Can you imagine Maurice Richard with a curved stick?
Yeah. Like that would be fun. All right, so let's wrap this up here. And Ed had a good suggestion about contact info for everybody here. So whatever you guys are comfortable in Hockey Unreal, we're going to start with you. I know you're on Delphi there in a little bit. So is there any way people can contact you, whatever you're safe with saying?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons why the channel is called Hockey Unreal is because it's Hockey Unreal at Gmail. Unreal Hockey was taken. There are a few other YouTube channels with the name Unreal Hockey, and so I assume one of them has that Gmail email, and so mine is simply hockeyunreal@gmail.com. I've also since changed my Delphi name so that it's Hockey Unreal, and so it's try to keep it as straightforward as possible. And I mean, with the name Hockey Unreal, I'm putting hockey first at least.
Yep.
So.
And that's your YouTube channel as well, right?
I look forward to your golf streams.
And you're on Delphi too, right? You do a lot of Delphi stuff there as well.
I did for a little while, actually. The timing for this is awkward for me because I've not really been doing much of anything for the past few months. But I mean, I had to jump at this opportunity to do something like this, and grateful to have been asked. But it's one of those things where, as much as I love hockey and hockey gaming and hockey, and hobbies and mixing the two, it's very time consuming. And so sometimes when other things come up in life, I look at, okay, well, where can I find time to do other things? And the one thing that consumes a lot of time being hockey, it's like, okay, maybe I'll set that aside and leave it, until playoffs or whatever. And so that's kind of what I'm doing with real and fictional hockey right now. But I know as soon as if I go to Delphi and I click on, CKY27, click on any of his many Hockey Bones thread, replays, wanted to shout out to him at some point in this, because I would love, maybe he would never be comfortable doing this, but the amount of games that he plays, he has to play Hockey Bones very quickly. I would love to see CKY do a video and upload it of him, and just the way I joke that he's an octopus or a bionic machine with his 8 arms, all rolling dice. Because seriously, if you go to Delphi and look at the number of Hockey Bones replays, that most of them are Hockey Bones. He does 1 or 2 other games too, but most are Hockey Bones. The amount of stuff that he gets through, the amount of games that he plays, it's incredible. And one other thing, it's a little off topic, but I got to throw it in there, 59-60. That makes my morning. Sorry that I got a little nervous and I kind of blacked out about the dynasty question and the Montreal Canadiens. I should have jumped right on that and said, no, it was a sweep. I watched the game. I've actually got that on DVD because stuff does get remastered. Rocket Richard's final point, the assist, he sets up his brother and everything. So, hearing that 59-60 will be made. I had that in Stratomatic back in the day. I bought that retro set back in the 90s for Stratomatic. And so that's an incredible, even though Rocket is, past is whatever. I think maybe Ron can attest to this. I don't know. Our backgrounds are a little different for our Habs fanfare, but at least as a Canadian boy growing up, again, I can't speak for, post 2000 or whatever, but if you read the hockey sweater, if you look at those iconic old black and white photos of Rocket Richard, you don't even have to live through the era of him playing. There's just something, there's an allure to that, there's a magic to that. And so the opportunity to have that, to roll Rocket Richard in a game of Hockey Bones is going to be incredible. And I will order, I'm going to get the drive-through card set and order it to a family house in Canada, so that when I'm back in Canada again, which will happen this year, I'll be able to get that set, nice and safe at the family home address. Love the Hockey Bones as PDF, so I don't have to do that. Along with the digital to dice mouse pad, which is sitting there at the same house, and a couple other hockey games and stuff too. So
I think on drive-through cards you can order the cards and get the PDF. I did that a couple times, so that way I get the PDF immediately, and if there's something I wanted to do with that, I could print it away and play a team or a game like that. But so I think I did that a couple times where I got both. I think so. If that's an option, you could get the cards immediately, and then when you go back to Canada. You can do that.
Yeah, some nice glossy cards.
So I'm not sure, the exception of Babe Ruth, if any one player has the mystique and aura of what Richard meant to Quebec. as what Ruth meant to baseball. I mean, because the Gretzky era was all on television, and today's players, you can see what to eat for breakfast if you pay $9.95 a month to their OnlyFans channel or whatever. But because it came in the era before really mass media and certainly before color television, I mean, Richard, the sweater, what Richard meant, and Ruth and some horses. That would be about it.
You might be right with that.
Ollie.
Ollie, yep, that would be.
Yeah.
That would be, but yeah, I mean, that's where Richard is right up there, and so yeah.
Yeah, he would be. Speaking of OnlyFans, how's your OnlyFans doing, Ron? Is that growing?
It's doing great. It's doing absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, your OnlyFans is doing well. I know you want to.
Have you gotten my cease and desist letter yet to stay away from my channel?
Well, I know that it's 9:30 right now here in the East Coast, and I know they usually do a 11 to midnight stream on Saturday, so we'll have to wrap this up.
I write your name on my pickle, Rick.
So you can get ready. I like to tune in just to see what kind of outfit you wear, you know what I mean? And, So
look, I'm wearing the Taco Bell T-shirt. I got the Chihuahua ears ready for you. Yo, Takero.
All right, Dave. How can we get a hold of you? Whether email, Delphi, whatever. Somebody wants to talk to you.
Yeah, Delphi, you can reach me, and maybe you have my email address, Dave, that I use for Hockey Bones. Maybe drop it in the YouTube description after the video goes up.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, anybody who's ever reached out to me with Hockey Bones questions, I get right back to you guys, and we'll answer any questions you have.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, one last thing before we go. Hockey Unreal, what's the next game you're going to play in Hockey Bones?
I have to go back actually to this. Again, I've not done it shamefully for a few months now. I would have to go back to the 68, 69. I'll just say that the type of person I am, given my personality, again, I just know it's one click on Delphi. It's one, to be honest, actually trying to get showered and get cleaned up at the last minute for this morning.
We can't smell you. You're fine.
Checked out some of your 87 video, Dave, but some of that stuff I've been kind of staying away from. I have an NHL subscription that I'm not using and blah, 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 just because I know it's one click and I'm off to the races again. And then suddenly all this time has gone by and other stuff that I need to get done just isn't getting done. So, yeah, so back to the question, Hockey Bones 68, 69. I'm somewhere in like week 3 or week 4. And again, it's a hypothetical season. And so if you click and you watch and you go, well, wait a minute, what's a good example? The drawing a blank, but like this player didn't play for that team in 68, 69. I know it's a project where I've redrafted a lot of the players to different teams as kind of a what if, and including the expansion. I've omitted the expansion teams. And so any great players that have played on expansion teams are now playing on an original 6 team.
Oh, interesting.
So it's all very hypothetical and everything. Yeah. And I'll get back to that again. Probably playoffs or so, and there will probably be a video about it. There's a couple that I've meaning to do, one for another, actually, friend of the community, and sorry, it's just I haven't felt that I've had the right energy to do it in this position.
We'll look forward to that. I just got 68, 69 in myself because I find that, and I did that with Strat too. When you order a season and they ship it to you, it almost makes sense to get a second season because of the shipping. That first box, the shipping is, X amount of dollars. And when you add a second season, the shipping either stays the same or only goes up a little bit. So you're actually saving a little bit if you get a second season. So I did get the 68, 69 so I can play some Oakland Seals playoff games. The only year they made the playoffs. I think it was the only year they made the playoffs. PJ's going to kill me if I get it wrong, but I think I'm going to.
No, that was the year. In fact, in my 68, 69 playoffs replay, they made it to the finals against the Bruins.
Oh, really? That would have been fun to see.
Yeah.
Did you post any of that on the Delphi? Can I go find that?
I do. I'll ping that up to the top and so you can see it.
Nice. All right, so Dave, before you go, what's the next game of Hockey Bones you're going to play?
The opening Series A of 71-72, Toronto at Boston. Got the score sheet all filled out and all the cards with the lines set up to drop them on the table and play.
Nice. I think my 80-81 arrived today along with 68-69. I think I'm going to be playing some North Stars playoff games. And I think they played they beat the Bruins that year. I was watching some highlights on YouTube. It's okay. I'm going to have them play the Bruins, and I think they played the Calgary Flames and the whole bit. So I'm going to play some North Stars games and see if I can get them to the finals, where they'll probably lose. Was it the Islanders they lost to that year?
Yeah, it was one of the 4.
Yeah. So that's
those 2 seasons, like 79, 80, and 81, where they had the 1 versus 16.
I love that. I love that
too. And in fact, all my playoff replays past 81, I don't care what the real playoffs were. I do 1 to 16.
I like that too. When I play some longer stuff too, that's the playoffs I prefer to play. I think I did that in shootout hockey one time, because I was like, okay, I'm going to play 1 to 16 here and see how it goes. And I had some fun with that. So anyway, Ron, any final words from you?
Been an enjoyable evening.
Okay. Yeah, we had some fun. Yeah. So anyway, I want to thank Hockey Unreal and
thank you.
And Dave Arlington for coming on the show here as we talk some hockey bones here. You guys don't go away. We have some parting gifts for you. We don't, but we like to say that. So just that means I'm going to hang up. I'm going to hang up.
Turtle wax coming.
Yes, a turtle wax. Remember that? Yeah, that was good. But we're going to end the broadcast here, but you guys stay here in the chat room.
This yogurt.
Wrap up. Yeah. So, anyway. So
sitting there with this yogurt, yeah.
Everybody who was in the chat tonight, thank you so much for joining us here as we talk some hockey bones with 2 great people here, Hockey Unreal and Dave Arlington. So I'm Dave.
I'm Ron.
And we'll talk to everybody later. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
We got to get the Ron bye-bye at the end. That's kind of how we end the show. It makes him feel important,